Isn't it fun when you discover a new sewing technique? As a dressmaker of over 40 years, it's very rare that I'm really surprised by a new technique, but recently I was. A while back, I purchased some Viyella shirts for my husband. And when I went to shorten the sleeves, I discovered a new way of making a cathedral placket. Before I show you how, I'll tell you why Viyella is such special cloth. The Viyella company started in England in 1893. It was the first branded fabric in the world. At that time, they made wonderful fabrics that were 55% wool and 45% cotton. At the height of my dressmaking career, which was in the 1980s and 90s, I could buy beautiful Viyella prints for women. And I made shirts, blouses, and shirtwaist dresses. Unfortunately, those days are gone. There are a few Viyella prints, vintage prints on the web from time to time, but most of the Viyella fabric is used for men's shirts. And they come in checks, tattersalls, and plaids. So back to our Viyella shirt. Once I took the cuff off and then the placket, I realized this is one piece. This is the pattern shape that I normally use for a cathedral placket. This new placket starts with a rectangular shape, as shown. It is called a cathedral placket because the point at the top reminds us of a steeple on a cathedral or church. After removing the placket, this is the shape that I discovered. Let me demonstrate in muslin. This line represents the center of the placement for the placket and the two diagonal slash lines. I'm going to draw a little rectangular box, and that will represent the entire placket. This sample is 4 inches long, and the placket is 1 inch wide. I'm cutting away 1/2 of an inch in the center and then diagonally to the corners, just like the shirt was done. And now I'm going to measure the length, add the width, and the length on the other side. It comes to 9 inches. So I'm going to make my placket about 10 inches so I have a little extra. Because the placket is 1 inch with seam allowance, I need 2 sides at 1 inch, which means 2 inches, and 2 seam allowances at a 1/2 inch. So added together is 3 inches, and the length is 10, to have a little extra. The arrow indicates length grain. This is cut on the length grain. To make this placket, I'm folding the cloth in half. I want the finished piece to be 1 inch wide, so I'm going to fold in the seam allowance and press. I want to be able to sew this like I would double fold bias tape, with one side a fraction larger or wider than the other. So I'm wrapping the second seam allowance around the first, and then I will open it and put that seam allowance inside, and then you will see that one side sticks out just a fraction more. And now to apply this to the shirt sleeve sample. The 2 diagonal slashes allow this process to happen. Otherwise, it would be hard to turn the corner easily. I set the short end of the placket along the placket placement on the right side of the sleeve. The wider side is underneath. Stitch down to the corner, being sure to capture just enough fabric that it doesn't pull away at the diagonal slash. Putting a pin at that corner usually helps stabilize it, makes it easier to work. Turn the corner, stitch to the other slash, turn the corner again at the second slash line, and stitch to the bottom. Now, just like origami paper, you're going to fold as shown, creating a little point. Point will land at the middle of the 1-inch placket. There you have it. Now to stitch it down. And on this placket, you really only need to stitch the top part. This will stabilize the point, the cathedral point. And after the final stitching, you can either tie your threads off or back tack. Trim off the excess. And here is our cathedral placket.
And back to our alteration.
So first I shortened the sleeves the amount that I needed to. The sleeves needed to be shortened 4 inches. I cut off 3.5 inches to allow for seam allowance. Then I have to extend the opening for the placket. And you can see that there is a space in that opening of about 1/2 inch. So I replicate what was there. I'm extending the opening the same amount that the sleeve was shortened. I'm going to simply lay the placket against the old stitching line. more complicated when you are working with the sleeve in the round. When you shorten a sleeve, as I have done, usually you have to make the pleats in the sleeve a little deeper. What I did was, I made a third pleat close to where the buttons are before sewing the cuff back to the sleeve. So there you have it, a one-piece continuous placket. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. If you have, please do share, give us the thumbs up, and subscribe. See you next time.